Hey, it's Ian Altman. Welcome to this week's episode of the Same Side Selling Podcast. This episode is available on video as well as audio. So depending on where you're listening to it or viewing it, know that you can also get it in the other format. On this episode, I'm going to talk about a common theme that I get asked about very often when I deliver keynote addresses all around the world to different industries. And the question is this: hey Ian, what do we do when we're talking to a client and we're a premium provider, but they compare us to the bottom feeders in the industry? See, there are these people who are kind of the low bidders and the people who don't really have great capabilities. And as soon as we start talking about what we do, our clients or prospects start comparing us to these people at the bottom who shouldn't even be in the same sentence. So what do? And it's a really simple concept that's often overlooked. See, the first thing you have to recognize is this: when your client has that misconception, when they don't understand the difference between what other people provide and what we provide, whose fault is that? Is it their fault or is it our fault? And the answer is, it's our fault, and that's great news. Because if it's our fault, we can do something to fix it. And the way we fix it is through something called the client vision pyramid. So you can often draw this out, many of my clients do, and the idea is that I want you to think of a pyramid like a triangle with a base. And the bottom level, there's 3 levels of it, in the bottom level, we have what's called the effective level. At the middle level is what's called the enhanced level, and at the pinnacle of it, the top, is the engaged level. Now, as soon as we start thinking that we might have a solution for a client or a prospect, that's when we have to introduce this client vision pyramid. Because if we don't, it's too late. They're already going to start comparing us to other people. So what we get to do is we get to ask them what they're looking for. And the way it sounds is this. So someone might approach me about, let's say, a keynote address. And when they do, they might say, oh yeah, well, we're talking about having you come work with us for a keynote address at our upcoming national sales meeting, this big conference, whatever it happens to be. And what I can say to them is, when people are looking for a speaker, they're usually looking at one of 3 levels. At the base level is the effective level. Those are people who are really good, have a good story they can tell, good content, and it may not be dead on for what you're looking for, but you may get people kind of at different levels of their career where it might cost you nothing or close to nothing to get someone. At the next level is the enhanced level. Here's where you have people where the message may not be specific for your industry, but it's going to be great lessons, motivational, things like that everyone can take away. At the highest level is what we call the engaged level. And at the engaged level, that's where the speaker spends time in advance learning about your businesses, the challenges that the individual attendees are facing, and then tailors a session specifically to address those needs for your audience to make sure that they get the most value out of it and that it's actionable and something they can use for a long time going forward. So which level are you looking for? And by asking that question, what I'm able to do now is I'm able to shift this conversation from just everybody who's a speaker is the same level, and now I've defined 3 different levels. And an interesting thing starts to happen. Your clients, every other alternative they consider, they tend to compare against those 3 levels. And they start thinking to themselves, well, okay, gee, this person we're talking to now, I guess they're probably in the enhanced level. Someone else, you know what, they're probably at the effective level. And there's an expectation already that at the highest level, where do you think the cost would be? So people immediately start to understand that at the higher level, there's a premium price that they're paying for it. And by the way, that goes across all industries. It's a good segue actually to this week's sponsor. And recognize that if you're looking to add quality sales talent to your team, that the top people that you're looking for aren't looking for a job right now. In fact, those people are totally content blowing away their numbers working for somebody else. And the people at Peak Sales Recruiting have a disciplined system to find and curate the right candidates and help those people understand they'd be better off working for you than for somebody else. If you want to see if they can help you, visit peaksalesrecruiting.com/Ian And you know what? My guess is they may be able to help. So back to this idea of this client vision pyramid. I want you to realize that when we have this client vision pyramid, there are a couple of things that might stand out to you. So you might think to yourself, yeah, but you know what? I feel like we're not exactly the pinnacle of our industry. In fact, we compete against these huge behemoths and we're a smaller company. And depending on the project, depending upon who the client is, that may actually be advantageous to them. So let me explain to you how I would do this. So let's say I was an IT provider and I was competing against these huge multinationals. So when the client says, well, we're looking for some help with this project, I might say to them, well, gee, usually people are looking for relationships to solve these types of technical challenges, and they're usually looking at one of three levels. At the base level is the effective level. This is where you might have an individual, a small team who pulls some people together. They may not have the depth of capabilities or expertise you're looking for, but you know what? They're pretty capable people and probably can get the job done. It may take a little bit longer, maybe a hiccup here or there, but certainly capable people. At the next level is what we call the enhanced level. And at the enhanced level, these are usually these big multinational companies, these huge entities where, man, when they come in and present stuff, it sounds amazing. Depending on the size of the project, if you don't have a huge project, you don't necessarily get those people on your project, but you know those people are available and they have a lot of resources. It's just a question of who you're going to get. At the highest level is the engaged level. That's where people partner with a firm where your business is significant enough to them that you get their A players, you get their top tier people. They have enough resources to cover what you need. They have enough experience to mitigate any risk, but you know you've got their undivided attention from their senior level people to make sure your project gets the priority that it needs. So which level are you looking for? And now by doing that, we get them to kind of think differently and say, wow, you know what? Yeah, I do want someone who's fully engaged with us, not just somebody who's a big name. And that's how we help draw that distinction between us and other people. Now, there are a couple other ideas that we can use. One is that anytime someone's considering you, recognize they may have worked with somebody else in the past. So when that happens, what you get to do is you say, oh, so you're looking to undertake this project. Yeah. Have you had any experience doing a project like this in the past? The client will often say yes and say, well, we always like to get a sense of what's worked in the past. Well, can you tell me some of the things you liked about the vendor you worked with the last time? And you get all that information from them. And then you get to say, so if you could change one or two things, what would those be? And after they share that information, then you get to ask, is the potential of solving those things that they couldn't address worth a conversation about how we might be able to help? Now, this is applicable whether they are currently working with that vendor or it's a vendor from the past. One other strategy that you can use when you're in these types of competitive situations is some ideas that come from my good friend Phil Jones' book, Exactly What to Say. And so one of the things you can ask is if the client says, well, we're talking to somebody else right now, you can ask one of my favorite lines from Phil, which is, how much do you know about the difference between how they approach things and how we approach things? And it opens their mind to the idea that you might do things differently than they do. And so these are just some different strategies to make sure that in these competitive situations, we have sharp clarity between us and our client about how we're different from the other people so that we can make together an informed decision about what's the best fit for them. By the way, they might say to you, oh, all I'm looking for is that bottom effective level, just the cheapest. And if that's the case, you just learned something very valuable at step one rather than at the end. So remember, when your client initially expresses interest in anything you do, that's when you lay out this client vision pyramid. Effective, enhanced, engaged. We go through and describe those three different levels and then ask them, which one are they looking to do? Which one interests them? What type of relationship is important for them? I can also ask, so when you've had a project like this in the past, what worked well? And if you could change one or two things, what would those be? And then I can use Phil Jones' line from Exactly What to Say that says, so how much do you know about the difference between how they handle this and how we address it? And by following those steps, this will give you insight to help you stand out and hopefully sell more on value versus price. Remember, this program gets its direction from you, the listener. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover, If there's a guest you think I should have on the program, just drop me a note to ian@ianaltman.com. Have an amazing week, add value for your customers, and grow revenue in a way everybody can embrace, even your customer.